Operation Leyte. In early August 1944, Germany launched Operation Leyte, a desperate counterattack near the town of Mortain in France. Adolf Hitler hoped to stop the Allied breakout after D-Day by cutting through American lines and reaching the English Channel. If successful, the attack could have trapped thousands of Allied soldiers and changed the course of the campaign in Normandy. The offensive began before sunrise as German panzer divisions pushed west with tanks, infantry, and artillery. At first, they gained some ground and surprised several American positions. However, the United States had already intercepted German plans through intelligence and quickly organized a defense around key hills and road junctions. As the weather cleared, American P-47 Thunderbolt fighter bombers entered the battle. They repeatedly attacked German tanks, supply trucks, and fuel convoys from the air, while U.S. ground forces held their defensive positions. Within days, the offensive collapsed. Germany lost hundreds of armored vehicles and many experienced soldiers, ending its final chance to regain the initiative in Normandy. Operation Wacht am Rhein. On December 16, 1944, Germany launched its largest offensive on the Western Front. Known as the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's plan was to split the American and British armies, capture the vital port of Antwerp, and force the Allies into peace negotiations before they could invade Germany. German forces attacked through the snow, covered Ardennes forest, taking advantage of poor weather that grounded Allied aircraft. The surprise assault created a deep bulge in the front line as armored divisions pushed toward important crossroads. Despite being caught off guard, American units fiercely defended key towns, especially Bastogne, slowing the German advance. When the skies finally cleared, American and Allied aircraft launched continuous attacks against German tanks, bridges, and supply columns. Fuel shortages and heavy resistance brought the offensive to a halt. By January 1945, Germany had lost thousands of experienced troops and valuable equipment that could never be replaced, making this its last major offensive in Western Europe. Operation Bodenplatte. On January 1, 1945, Germany launched Operation Bodenplatte, its final large-scale air offensive in Western Europe. The mission aimed to destroy Allied aircraft parked at airfields across Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. German commanders hoped that crippling Allied air power would give their ground forces enough time to recover after the Battle of the Bulge. Before dawn, nearly 1,000 German fighters crossed the front at very low altitude to avoid radar detection. The surprise attack damaged several Allied airfields and destroyed many aircraft on the ground. However, the success lasted only a short time. Navigation errors caused some German pilots who attacked the wrong targets, while Allied anti-aircraft defenses quickly responded. As the raid continued, American and British fighters intercepted the returning aircraft. Germany lost more than 250 planes, and more importantly, hundreds of experienced pilots who could never be replaced. Although the Allies repaired most of the damaged airfields within days, the Luftwaffe never recovered from these losses, leaving Germany with little ability to challenge Allied air superiority for the rest of the war. Operation Greif. During the Battle of the Bulge, Germany launched Operation Greif, one of the war's most unusual special operations, led by SS Commander Otto Skorzeny. The mission used German soldiers dressed in American uniforms to infiltrate Allied lines. Their objective was to spread confusion, change road signs, cut communication lines, and seize important bridges before American forces could react. Small teams crossed into Allied territory using captured American vehicles and equipment. Some successfully redirected traffic and delayed troop movements, creating temporary confusion behind the front. However, the operation soon began to unravel as American checkpoints increased security and questioned soldiers on details only U.S. troops would know. Many disguised commandos were captured before reaching their objective, and several were executed after being identified as enemy soldiers wearing Allied uniforms during combat. Although Operation Greif caused short-term disruption, it failed to achieve its strategic goals and had no meaningful impact on Germany's overall offensive, which soon collapsed under growing Allied pressure. Battle of Midway. In June 1942, Japan launched the Battle of Midway, hoping to lure American aircraft carriers into a trap and destroy the U.S. Navy's remaining strength in the Pacific. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese leaders believed that eliminating America's carriers would give them complete control of the ocean and secure their expanding empire. The operation began as Japanese aircraft bombed Midway Atoll while their powerful carrier fleet waited nearby. However, the Japanese did not know that American codebreakers had already uncovered their plan. U.S. commanders positioned their carriers northeast of the island and prepared a surprise counterattack before the Japanese fleet even knew they had been detected. As Japanese crews refueled and rearmed their aircraft for another strike, American dive bombers suddenly appeared overhead. Within minutes, 3 Japanese fleet carriers were set ablaze, and a 4th was sunk later that day. Japan lost 4 carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and many of its most experienced naval aviators. The defeat ended Japan's offensive momentum and shifted the balance of the Pacific War in America's favor. Operation 10 Go. By April 1945, Japan's navy was nearly destroyed, but its leaders launched one final desperate mission known as Operation 10 Go. The centerpiece of the operation was the battleship Yamato, the largest battleship ever built. Its mission was to sail toward Okinawa, attack the American invasion fleet, and fight until it was destroyed because there was not enough fuel for a return journey. The Yamato and its escort ships left Japan under strict radio silence, hoping to reach Okinawa before being discovered. But American submarines detected the the fleet and reported its position almost immediately. Soon afterward, hundreds of aircraft from U.S. aircraft carriers were launched to intercept the approaching ship long before they came within range of their target. Wave after wave of American bombers and torpedo planes struck the Japanese fleet from every direction. The Yamato suffered multiple explosions before rolling over and sinking beneath the sea. More than 3,000 Japanese sailors were killed, and most of the escort ships were also lost. Operation 10 Go ended in complete failure and marked the final major mission of the Imperial Japanese Navy. If you're enjoying these World War II documentaries and want more real military operations explained through accurate research and cinematic storytelling, consider subscribing. We regularly cover the battles, strategies, and missions that shaped history. Now, let's continue with another operation that permanently changed the balance of power in the Pacific: Battle of the Philippine Sea. In June 1944, Japan launched a major carrier operation during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. Their goal was to destroy the advancing U.S. Pacific Fleet and prevent American forces from capturing the Mariana Islands. Japanese commanders believed one decisive victory could slow the Allied advance and restore control of the Pacific. As Japanese carrier aircraft flew toward the American fleet, they were detected early by U.S. radar. American commanders launched waves of fighter aircraft to intercept them long before they reached their target. Better pilot training, superior radar coordination, and stronger aircraft gave the United States a decisive advantage in the skies. The result was a devastating defeat for Japan. More than 300 Japanese aircraft were shot down, while American losses remained relatively low. The battle became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot because of the overwhelming success of U.S. pilots. Japan lost many of its remaining experienced naval aviators, a blow from which its carrier force never recovered. Battle of Leyte Gulf. In October 1944, Japan launched one of its most ambitious naval operations during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. The plan called for several fleets to attack from different directions, lure away American aircraft carriers, and destroy the Allied invasion force landing in the Philippines. If successful, the operation could have delayed the liberation of the island. The Japanese fleet advanced through multiple sea routes while American submarines, reconnaissance aircraft, and carrier groups tracked their movements. As the battle unfolded, U.S. aircraft repeatedly attacked Japanese warships, sinking the massive battleship Musashi and damaging several cruisers before they could reach the invasion beaches. After days of fighting across multiple naval battles, Japan suffered catastrophic losses. Several carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers were sunk, while the remaining fleet was forced to retreat. The defeat crippled Japan's naval power and left the Imperial Navy unable to launch another major offensive for the rest of the war. Operation Kikusui. In the spring of 1945, Japan launched Operation Kikusui, a series of massive kamikaze attacks during the Battle of Okinawa. Facing overwhelming American naval power, Japanese commanders hoped that waves of suicide aircraft could sink enough warships to force the United States to abandon its invasion of the island. Over several weeks, hundreds of Japanese pilots flew directly toward American carriers, destroyers, and transport ships. Although some attacks struck their targets and caused serious damage, U.S. radar stations detected many incoming aircraft long before they arrived. American fighters intercepted large formations, while anti-aircraft guns created a deadly wall of fire around the fleet. Despite damaging several Allied ships, the operation failed to stop the invasion. Japan lost thousands of aircraft and many trained pilots in attacks that could not be replaced. Operation Kikusui became one of the largest suicide campaigns in history, but it failed to change the outcome of the war. Iwo Jima reinforcement attempt. In early 1945, Japan made several desperate attempts to reinforce the island of Iwo Jima after American forces began their invasion. The goal was to deliver ammunition, supplies, and additional troops before the island was completely surrounded, allowing the defenders to continue resisting the American advance. Japanese transport ships and smaller naval vessels attempted to reach the island under the cover of darkness. However, American submarines, aircraft, and warships were already patrolling the surrounding waters. Many supply missions were intercepted before they reached the island, while others were forced to turn back without unloading their cargo. As the battle continued, Japanese defenders fought with the supplies already on the island, receiving little meaningful reinforcement. The failure of these missions left many units isolated and unable to replace their losses. Iwo Jima eventually fell after weeks of intense fighting, giving the United States a strategic airbase much closer to Japan. Okinawa Naval Reinforcement Mission. As the Battle of Okinawa intensified in 1945, Japan launched repeated naval missions to support its remaining forces on the island. Destroyers and transport vessels attempted to deliver food, ammunition, and reinforcements while avoiding the growing presence of the U.S. Navy and its aircraft carriers. American reconnaissance aircraft quickly located many of these convoys, allowing carrier-based bombers and submarines to intercept them before they reached Okinawa. Several Japanese ships were sunk during the crossings, while others were heavily damaged and forced to retreat. The overwhelming control of the sea and air made successful resupply almost impossible without enough supplies or reinforcements. Japanese defenders were gradually overwhelmed by the advancing American forces. These failed missions highlighted how completely the United States had gained control of the Pacific, leaving Japan unable to support its own troops during one of the war's final campaigns.